Welcome to a Heritage Minute special with Lieutenant Colonel retired Steve Simon, U.S. Air Force Academy Association and Foundation writer and historian.
The United States Air Force Academy is an amazing place, steeped in long blue line history and brimming over with stories. I'm Steve Simon, class of 77, and I'm here to tell them. This is the Heritage Minute. Today I have the honor of speaking with Lieutenant General retired J. Kelley, USAFA class of 1964. Thank you for being here, sir.
It's a pleasure, Steve. Good to be with you again.
Likewise. General Kelley completed his brilliant active duty career as commander of Air University and director of education for Air Education and Training Command. Post-retirement, he spent 10 years in Doolittle Hall as president of the Falcon Foundation. So much we could talk about, sir. First, I'd like to discuss your cadet career, which had at least one very interesting aspect involving parachuting. What brought you to the academy in the first place?
Well, it was, I lived in a little town in Indiana, 3 miles from a World War II Navy airfield. And the Air Force took it over, and this was in the 50s, early 50s, mid-50s, and activated it. And my dad being the county cop, he was a state policeman in Indiana, the Air Force reached out to him to community coordination. And so one day he come and got me out of school and said, come on, we're going to go watch some airplanes. We parked off the end of the runway at what became Grissom Air Force Base and watched a whole bunch of F-86s land. And then obviously they moved into the community. I got to meet some of them. And then one day, the base commander in one of the periodic meetings he had with my dad on community relations said, you got any kids? And he said, yeah, he's got a boy. Well, let me talk to him about the Air Force Academy. This had to be shortly after Eisenhower had signed the authorization. Yeah. And so he took me out of school again one day out there, marched me up to this colonel, and he told me about the Air Force Academy. And I told him about seeing all them airplanes, and that's where it started.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was great.
All right, so here you are, class of 64, of course, the... fifth graduating class? Sixth graduating.
Sixth class, yeah.
So other than jumping, any other highlights of your cadet days? We'll get into the jumping here in a second, but any other fun stuff?
I don't know, it wasn't too much fun. I ended up busting my jaw during basic cadet training. I had my jaw wired shut, but they let me continue BCT with my jaw wired shut. And then when we went on survival detail, I had 32 cans of baby food and a straw.
Oh, jeez.
And then we finally got to eat the rabbit. Nobody in my element had ever skinned or let alone killed a rabbit. So I couldn't eat him, but I killed him and skinned him.
Okay.
So anyway, that's a story.
That is a story. Thank you. So let's turn our attention now to your role as a founding member of the Academy's JUMP program. To me, the most remarkable fact is that it was unauthorized, that you and your accomplices, I guess, renegades and mavericks. How did that whole thing get started?
Well, it started with me. Joel Aronoff, my classmate and good friend, stopped me. And I didn't know him at the time, didn't know him well at all. This was our first class, our summer of it would have been, about, early summer, late spring, right after graduation. We were getting ready for BCT, and Joel come up to me on the terrazzo and said, I heard you're not going to Benning. I didn't know I knew that, but it was true. I got knee surgery because I couldn't pass the physical to go to Benning. And so
that was the Army training, Army parachute program at Fort Benning, Georgia. Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly what it was. And so he said, well, you want to do some jumping? And I said, sure. But how are we going to do that? And I didn't know anything about skydiving, let alone that he was already doing it. And he said, well, we're going to need some parachutes. Maybe when you take the Beast Basics up to the Pike National Forest, you could maybe salvage some of those parachutes. Well, these parachutes were all condemned and from time, as far as we knew. And we cut them up and used the packs for all kinds of things, as if you had bailed out of an airplane. That was part of the survival thing. So I said, sure, I'll see what I can do. And that was about as spontaneous an event as there could be.
Okay.
So we did that. Once I signed up got authorization, legitimately had to go through the supply officer, got 7 of those, parachute, canopies, and packs.
Okay.
And Joel, who had already done some. Meantime, McCurdy and Davis had joined the group. So there were 4 of us that were kind of key to it. We gathered together, and so Joel said, okay, now we got the parachutes. So now we're at the end of the summer. Joe said, I know where to send them off. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to send them off to make it I think there were about 4 of them were 7-panel TUs, a couple of double Ls, and then one was a slot, which would be used for training. Just one slot, one panel of the canopy out. So we sent those off, got those back pretty quick. In the meantime, while we were waiting on the canopies, we went to a war surplus store up in Denver and got some altimeters. No, we had signed. We sent off and got the altimeter stopwatches and the plate, and ordered the reserve chute. But we had to have hard hats, and we got an extra set of flying suits because we knew we were going to tear them up. But anyway, so by the time the canopies come back, we had everything we need to go jumping.
Literally built this from scratch.
From scratch.
And you and I spoke a few years ago. In fact, there's a Checkpoints article that you and I worked on that ran back in September 17th for any listeners who want to learn more about this. But I love that you called Aronoff the Yoda of the parachute program. So
indeed he was. I mean, that's the right characterization, because he's the one we all listen to, and he's the only one when it came to what are we doing. Okay. So Joe was clearly in charge. He never said a lot. He was kind of a quiet guy until we happened to do something right, and then he got a little excited about that.
I know.
He was a leader.
Yeah, when I spoke to him for the article, I said I didn't want to lead. I didn't want to start a program. I just wanted to jump out of airplanes. And he did what it took to make that happen, obviously very successfully. And of course, you got increased visibility as you went.
We did.
And then you even won a national championship.
Well, we did. Joel became the leader, as you noted, not because he wanted to be, but because he was recognized by the rest of us as a guy that knew what he was doing. And that's always a hallmark for leadership.
Absolutely.
As far as getting started, Joel, as you know, through the flying side of his life, had been going up to this little airport up there by Boulder. And so that's where we went to jump. And Stu and JJ had been through Benning. Joel had not, but he'd done skydiving. I'm the one that hadn't done any of that. And so we trained each other. They trained me to start with. But we made ourselves a little training platform up there at this Boulder airport. We found a guy who could be a certified jump master, because obviously none of us JJ and Stu and I had never done any skydiving, but they had jumped out of an airplane. Joel had done a lot. I had done 0. So we needed a certified jump master. So he wasn't really interested in being responsible for us, but he wanted to get a free ride up. So we paid for his ride up. It legitimized us jumping out of the airplane, even though it was Joel Aronoff that was telling us exactly what to do and what we had practiced and trained for. So it worked like a charm. The great news is, of course, 0 injuries. It's stunning and amazing that never happened, but it didn't. We took it seriously when we were talking about leaving the airplane. So it was a good program.
And then you and Pete Johnston, class of 66, won a national championship for.
Yeah. Well, in the meantime, once we got ourselves trained and could jump, we kept going around to little airports and doing this. There was another one west of Denver. I don't remember the name of it, but we went up there a lot. So we were developing confidence. We knew each other. We knew what to do. And in the meantime, other cadets who were becoming aware of us jumping would say, hey, can I come up and jump? Most all of them, they just wanted to do it one time and quit. We realized that was taking all of our time to teach them what we needed to teach them to go out of the airplane once or twice. That was most of them, but certainly not all. Pete Johnston was one. Jim McGorry was another that was jumping with us from time to time. But it was the 464 guys and Pete that kind of started doing everything together. We would go, Joel would get in on behalf of us. He became the contact. So other people heard about us. And so we get invited to jump meets, get invited to do this and that. And we did. We never did particularly well. We learned a lot. I remember one time we went over to Enid, Oklahoma, Vance Air Force Base. There was a jump meet over there. So we drove ourselves over there on a long weekend. Vance is known for the place where you learn how to do crosswind landings. There's a reason for that, a lot of wind. So when we jumped out, we were not so much aware of that. And so I think Joel and Stu and JJ ended up on a rooftop, and I ended up hung up on a barbed wire fence. That was a learning experience. On another occasion, about crosswinds or wind in general, not too far from this little airport up in Denver that we used to jump at, there was a feedlot. And I ended up there one time and got drugged through that feedlot, which was a smelly experience is a kind word. But we did all that stuff. The business about the national championship, we had participated in some jump meets, didn't do well, but Stu found out, or Joel found out about this National Collegiate Parachuting Championships up near Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. The question was how to get there. We had privileges, all first-classmen, except for Pete, who was 2 years behind us. So we had to figure out how to get him up there as well as ourselves. Well, we found out the Academy debate team, forensics team, had a T-29 going to the University of Wisconsin, Madison, and for a debate meet or for whatever they do. And so we went Space A with them and landed right there. And then we rented a car, drove over to where the jump meet was. It was not a good weekend. It was rainy, low clouds. It was just a lousy time. But in any event, Joel, JJ, and Stu jump relative work, jump out, perform some maneuvers, get together, and then come down. Pete and I, Joel selected Pete and I to do accuracy. So we jumped together in accuracy, and it was just one of those days. We just hit it right. I mean, we were almost right smack on the nickel. So we ended up winning first place in event 2, accuracy of the National Collegiate Parachuting Championship. And we got a trophy. It was about a foot and a half high. Pete got one, I got one, and we come back. So we got on the airplane. Of course, the debate team wondered what we were doing anyway, because what are you guys doing with all these parachutes? But this time we had trophies.
And apparently one of those trophies is down at the airfield to this day?
Yeah, I gave mine once I got back here and was basically down at Air Force Base Command. And I came out here one day and introduced myself to the squadron commander, and I said, I've got something for you, and I give him the trophy. And of course, he didn't know any of the story or anything about it. But so they put it in the little glass case. I think it's the smallest trophy there. But it might be. I got to thinking the other day when we sent me the email about this podcast that I wonder if the Academy winning that intercollegiate championship, if that was the first intercollegiate championship the Academy had won.
Quite possibly.
And I don't know.
I know there was
this
a wrestler.
This was in 64. So there would have been, could well have been others. I just don't know. But anyway, that's how all that happened.
And then it gets really interesting because, of course, with your notoriety, the commandant and the superintendent found out. What was their response? Yeah,
the commandant found out first. He hauled Joel in because his name was known to be the leader of this motley crew. And he was grilled about that. And then they had seen a picture in a paper about us jumping in a thing up at Buckley. And that was part of the thing, I think, that triggered it. But I think it was also the notoriety that we came back with these trophies. Of course. And I think that was part of it also. Yeah. But by this time, we weren't hiding it. We were packing parachutes in the hallway in the cadet area. I was in first quadrant, so I had 2 2x4s I'd put at the end, because that's another thing we had to do. We packed our own parachutes. We taught ourselves how to do that, which is probably not the smartest thing we ever did. But it worked. And, of course, everybody, what are you doing with a parachute, you know? And JJ and Stu and Joel was packing chutes up in their area too. So it wasn't a secret by this time. And but yeah, we all ended up in the commandant's office after Joel's experience, and explaining ourselves. For about a week we were on restrictions. They took the trophies away from us because Pete and I put our trophies on our bookshelf in our cadet room, and those disappeared. I was concerned. Here we are, about 30 days left, so to speak, from graduation. All kinds of bad thoughts were run through my head, as well as the other guys. And but it all turned out well. I guess I heard that the commandant called his classmate, his counterpart, back at West Point for help, and we had beat West Point in this competition, and. And then I think the final thing after we left, because obviously Joel, Stu, JJ, and I left, leaving Pete as the sole survivor. He became I think the first president of the parachute club or activity, which is what it became officially known after we were gone. And McGorry, I think, was playing a bigger role at that time with Pete. And I was at AWOL from there on. We were all out doing what we were supposed to do.
Air Force stuff. So, and before we move on, I guess we do have to acknowledge the tragedy that Pete Johnston died here as a jump accident.
Yeah, it was a bad day. I wasn't here, so I don't know firsthand, but I was told he had a really tight pack. Pete was a very aggressive guy, great guy. He and I became great friends in the short period of time that we jumped together. But when it come time to get out of the airplane, Pete was out of there assholes and elbows, and you had to be out of your way when he went out of the airplane. So how the circumstances of it, I was told that he had a tight pack and was kept fighting it all the way down and made the decision on the reserve at the last minute. It wasn't enough time. But I don't know if that's the true story.
Such a tragedy. So
it was. And everybody worried that would be the end of it because it was right down here. As far as I know, that's the only parachuting fatality that we've had. There have been injuries, but no fatalities.
That is correct.
But good, wise men prevailed, and it was not the end. If anything, it put a sharper point on the training and preparation,
the requirements for
and
safety,
requirements to jump and the execution of the jumps, and to the point where we've got the most outstanding cadet run program I think there is at the academy.
And I'd say the legacy that the most successful parachuting program in the history of the United States, as far as collegiate, winning it almost year after year. So, and again, I'll remind listeners, if you want to learn more about this story, check out the September 17th issue of Checkpoint. So, okay, enough about cadet days. Upon graduation, you went into missiles in space, as did I. So how was that as a first assignment and a kickoff to your career?
I was going to be the world's best fighter pilot, like all the rest of my classmates, but about 2 or 3 months before graduation, I was told I was not qualified to fly. So pick something else. I had just come out of military training class, and I remember them talking about these things called ICBMs, which I hadn't paid a lot of attention to. And I said, well, what do I do? What if I can't go to fly? What do I do? They said, well, pick ops. Do something in ops. Well, what's another ops program? Missiles. I said, I'll do that. Okay. Then they come back and said, where do you want to go? And what are my choices? So they give me the Minuteman and the Titan II bases at the time. I said, I'll go Titan II at Davis-Monthan.
Okay.
That was it.
Okay.
Not a lot of logic to it.
Yeah. Similar to me, I went into missiles, and where do you want to go? I'll go Cheyenne because it's close to here. I can come back and see my friends and go skiing and that sort of thing. So,
Good decision. Good decision.
The way we make our career decisions. So, any other highlights of your career? I know we're going to talk about Air University here in a minute, but say the middle part of your career.
I was blessed with a great crew commander, being with a great operation down at Davis Mountain. All of the leadership. It was an introduction to how our Air Force works. Because here I'm a missile guy, and there was not very many of us like me. No, I think there was one other guy, 63, had washed out of pilot training, and he was down there. Never got to know him very well. But everybody else of any leadership position down there was somebody that had done something in World War II.
Okay.
Which, remember, we're talking what, 20 years ago, earlier.
Yeah.
And
beforehand. So
I was assigned to the senior stand board crew. I was the deputy commander for a while. He had been the navigator on a B-17 in World War II, Joe Spencer. The wing commander was B-24s. The DO guy was a B-24 guy. All the leadership were flyers.
Nice.
There wasn't a single one that had anything to do with missiles.
Okay.
But they taught us well, and eventually the missile career field began to grow its own. I was fortunate to be part of that. And it was great. And then at some point after a wing command tour at McConnell at another Titan II base, I got acquainted with General Larry Welch, who was from Kansas, and he would fly in and out of there when he was going to go home visit or something now and then. He and I became acquainted. Well, then he became SINCSAC.
Okay.
And I ended up being the deputy chief of staff at SINCSAC after completing a tour of wing commander. And so got to know General Welch, worked with him very closely. He was only the commander there for a year. He goes and becomes chief of staff of the Air Force.
Right.
And about a year later, no, it wasn't a year. It was about 9 months. 10 months later, I get told I'm going to go be the senior military advisor over at the State Department, Arms Control and Disarmament Agency. Spent a lot of time, almost on a monthly basis, talking with General Welch about arms control and the Air Force position and so forth. And when that tour was done, I was sent back to missiles, or actually I was sent back to War College. But in any event, General Welch said, I'm going to send you, I need an ops guy to go help Air Force Space Command get more operationally oriented. So I became the DO as a 1-star of Air Force Space Command, having got some terms of endearment from General Welch about how the position the Air Force Space Command should take with regard to U.S. Space Command, which was out here. Right. And that new relationship was only beginning to form. Okay. And there was a lot of angst on both sides, the joint side as well as the Air Force side.
Sure. Okay, and then in 92, you began commanding Air University. So how did that assignment come about?
I had finished my tour at Space Command, ended up as the vice commander, got called one night on Friday night, proverbial 5 o'clock, said, you have an appointment with General McPeak, 8 o'clock Monday morning.
By then, the chief of staff of the Air Force.
He was chief of staff. I'm a 2-star, vice commander of Space Command at the time. So I figured this is how they tell you you're supposed to retire. I didn't know. So I report, do my thing, and he said, I want you to take over Air Force Public Affairs. I said, I don't know anything about that. He says, you've been a commander, base commander, wing commander. You know how to deal with the public. Yes, sir. Just run the damn thing. Any questions? No, sir. That's it. It was a 5-minute conversation. Wow. And I'm out of the office, come home and tell my wife we're moving to Washington.
To the Pentagon.
And in that summer period that was when General McPeak had replaced his predecessor, who got relieved. Everyone recalls General McPeak reorganized the Air Force, come up with a new uniform, reviewed every command career badge, all those kinds of things. And I was the public affairs guy that built the public and the Air Force presentation of his ideas.
Okay.
After doing that all summer, 5 months, he says, I'm going to promote you. General Secretary Rice and I are going to promote you and send you to Air University. You got a problem with that? Same question he asked earlier. No, sir. You're dismissed. And
there you go.
Promotion ceremony, and I went down to Air University.
Off to Alabama.
Yeah, yeah. Great assignment. Not sure I'd want to live there. I got a little tired of cockroaches. But great assignment, great people down in Alabama, and was there for 4 years.
Okay.
And retired there. And the challenge was, that's part of his reorganizing the Air Force. At the time, Air University was its own major command.
Right.
It had been for quite some time. General McPeak didn't see it that way, so he had a new plan for what was Air Training Command,
right.
and to bring Air University and Air Training Command together.
Okay.
And so he had Butch Vasilio as the new commander of Air Training Command, and Kelley as the new commander of Air University. And he said, you two figure it out. And so Butch and I did that. And about a year later, so as I recall, we integrated and we created Air Education and Training Command.
Okay.
Butch was the commander. I was his director of education and still the commander of Air University.
Okay. I've been curious about this, just given that all Air Force education should complement each other. And the AU and the Academy, was there a close relationship there? Did you have a lot to do with the Academy at all, or much at all?
I talked with Paul Stein quite a bit, and Paul took command of the Air Force Academy. I don't know, it was a couple of years after I ran Air University, but he and I used to coordinate a lot. Interestingly, we coordinated a lot on athletic events to try and get the Air Force Academy exposure in intercollegiate sports down in the southeast part of the U.S.
Okay.
We recruited a lot of youngsters from that area, so let's start playing some games down there. I think baseball was one of the first ones we did. So. Football come a little later. But Troy State was one of the schools that we began with. But in any event, a lot of coordination. There was talk, but it was minimal about the two coming together or being somehow related, Air University and Air Force Academy. But we had just married education and training with Air Training Command, and it really, there was no way to fit that in there. And besides that, the mission responsibility of the Academy was totally different.
That's true.
Than Air University, because I had responsibility for ROTC and OTS. Both belonged to me.
Okay.
I moved them from OTS from Medina up to Maxwell in coordination with General Welch, of course.
Right.
But, General McPeak. But when you think about problems that occur at the Academy and how to deal with those, it's usually involving cadets. How did those cadets get there? Political nomination, senator, congressman, vice president, president. So that probably makes more sense to leave that one over there, outside the normal Air Force chain of command that existed with AETC at the time.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, and then after you retired, you moved back here to Colorado, as a lot of us retired Academy graduates do. Yeah. So, and of course, you'd been stationed here previously, so I guess you'd already
with Air Force Base Command. Yeah, it's the best place I ever lived. So why not come back and stay
likewise?
Here?
So, and then after a while, you became the president of the Falcon Foundation here in Doolittle Hall. Did that for 10 years. So how was that?
That was an eye-opening experience. I treasure it and think about it almost daily. It was an honor to be able to represent much of the prior leadership of the Air Force, because they are the trustees of the Falcon Foundation. And to do that with respect to the AOG at the time, and the endowment was just beginning.
Right.
After it the AOG had its challenges.
Broke off.
But to represent them with the Academy and to present this opportunity to the Director of Admissions, Carolyn Benishek at the time, how we can help young people that didn't quite measure up, give them another year. And the Falcon Foundation ended up beating any other cohort in graduation rate, retention on active duty rate. And by the way, while the Falcon scholars were maybe 4 or 5% of an entering class, while I was the president, we'd had, I believe, 5 Academy graduates become chief of staff.
Right.
And 3 of them, or 4, 2 of them were all 3 of them were Falcon scholars. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So anyway, we consider it to be a good return on the investment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very, very successful and important organization here at the Air Force Academy. So your successor, in fact, is Steve Lorenz, class of 73. He's now the president. He likes to refer to his class as the illustrious class of 1973, which we have to give him. There were a lot of 4 stars there, but I'd have to say that your class of 64 might exceed his in eminence, certainly in terms of categories such as Distinguished Graduate Award recipients and, sadly, Vietnam War killed in action and prisoners of war, especially noteworthy for your class. So some thoughts about your class.
Yeah, I think I remind General Lorenz, the 64, no one's done more, to his response for his 73. But it's an honor. I'm the president of the class of 64 at present, preceded by many outstanding classmates. And your observation, we've had 18 KIAs and 10 POWs. Interestingly, one of those KIAs was Max Manning. And interesting to tie this back to Joel Aronoff.
Yes.
Max and Joel are both Jewish. And both of them, after serving their combat tours, then went to the Israeli Air Force. Okay, so after Vietnam, Max was helicopters, Joel was F-4s. Then went over to fly with the Israeli Air Force. Joel, having just come out of Vietnam, knew how to beat SAMs, and that's what the Israeli Air Force needed to learn how to do. And that's they love him till this day for what he taught them. Max was flying a helicopter and was KIA'd in a rescue attempt over near the Suez Canal. And but outstanding. So we've had a number. Paul Kaminsky, who is the granddaddy idea guy behind the Institute of Future Conflict that's coming up right now. Max James, who is our other helicopter guy. The H-3 down at the display down by the B-52 is a result of Max James. So too the Polaris Hall. Max had a major role in that. So there are countless examples of the 64. No one's done more.
Can't argue with that. And of course, you got your reunion coming up here in a little bit, so hopefully that will be a good chance to get together. And speaking about Joel Aronoff and Max Manning, of course, you and I worked together on that article. I appreciate you bringing that whole topic to me. And if listeners want to learn more about that, we wrote an article in the March 2022 checkpoints about those 2 fine gentlemen. So,
yes, indeed. That was well done.
Absolutely. Thank you. Our time is about up. Some final thoughts are next. But before we do that, we have something new for you listeners. The Heritage Minute series and Heritage Minute specials like this one are available in video and audio at our new Heritage Hub on the Association of Graduates website. Go to usafa.org, Heritage Hub, and watch or listen anytime or catch up on the Heritage Minutes you might have missed. Keeping up with the series is easy. Search at Air Force Grads on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and more for show announcements and updates. So, General Kelley, any final words for our audience?
Well, I think sometimes we forget about others that were part of that jump program. Former Commandant Kristen Goodwin was, Speedy Martin, 4-star, Dale Meyer Rose, just to name 2 or 3. But I would encourage but there are many more. And I would encourage all those who have participated in the parachute program, but those in particular who have been part of the Wings of Blue, to get connected or reconnect with your current Wings of Blue and the squadron down there, and let's support them in everything that you can do to help them sustain the best program for leadership and integrity that the Academy has. I mean, you've got to know what you're doing to be responsible for putting a young man or woman out the door of an airplane in a free fall. And that shouts to training and preparation, and it shouts loudly about integrity and honor.
Absolutely. And something you've known about since your cadet days when you founded that program. So,
Yeah.
General Kelley, thank you so much for coming in today. We greatly appreciate your participation in this podcast.
Honor and pleasure. Thank you much, Steve.
Thank you, sir. I'm Steve Simon. Thanks for listening. Find more episodes at usafa.org/heritagehub.